This is EB3, Speaking the Truth in Love, and I just come on for a few minutes to give you guys a word of encouragement. Today I was listening to this radio show while I was out in the parking lot waiting on my son. And of course I'm back out here in the parking lot waiting on my son. But the radio show that I was listening to is called Hannah's Heart. Her show is basically about her struggle with infertility, and it comes on every Saturday on AFR, American Family Radio. I think I've shared with you guys that I had problems conceiving and carrying. And so I guess it just brought up listening to her guests and the different things she's gone through. It brought up some of the things that I went through. And I think in society, even today, it's not as bad as it was in the Bible days. But even today, in society, first of all, there's a stigma for women not having babies or don't want to have babies, right? So there's got to be something wrong with you if you are a married woman and you don't have children. And that is the part that I experienced. Back when I was going through infertility, my whole 20s. First of all, I was 20 years old when I had a tubal pregnancy. I was unmarried. I ended up getting married. I got married at 21. Same person that I was pregnant by. But and we ended up being married for 28 years until he passed away last year. But my whole 20s, well, let's go back. When I was 20 years old, I had the tubal pregnancy. And that in itself was an experience because, number one, I was 20 years old, never been pregnant before. It was with my first, and to this day, my only. So I had no idea that I was pregnant. The only thing was the kind of problems I was having. My doctor was treating me for irregular cycle. So I was almost 3 months pregnant in my tube. And I was almost unalived, as they like you to say on these platforms. That was a situation where I think a lot of women have gone through that. I know I have an aunt that went through that. She's an aunt by marriage, but she's still an aunt. I remember after her having like 4 or 5 children, she had a tubal pregnancy, and then later on she actually gave birth to 2 more. I think they got, between my uncle and her, they got about 7, 8 kids. But during the time when I went through it, which was 2 years later, I had 2 other coworkers that had it, that went through the same thing. So it's more common than a lot of people realize. It's called ectopic pregnancy, the medical term for it. But in layman's term, like I said, it's a tubal pregnancy. Basically, instead of your egg making it to the womb, the sperm meets the egg and fertilizes the egg, and instead of it going on down to the womb like it's supposed to, the baby starts developing in that tube. How I survived that is a miracle because, like I said, most people find out they have a tubal pregnancy way before 3 months. I was almost 3 months, like a week before 3 months. And I was at work. And I started bleeding profusely. I did not understand it at the time, not knowing my body, not knowing these different things, being so young and inexperienced. I was actually hemorrhaging to death and did not know. Passing blood clots this big, big as big as a golf ball at least, and some maybe a little bit bigger, and then little bitty pieces. It was just a very bad experience. And so then when I left work, and when I made it to the hospital, emergency room, they took me in the bag. Of course, they gave me another pregnancy test. It came back negative. And then they said it's got to be something. So they gave me an ultrasound, and they saw something. Well, after they gave me the ultrasound, they saw something. Then they gave me a pregnancy test through the blood. And that's when they knew for sure that was a baby in my tube. And my tube was about to burst, which is why I was hemorrhaging so bad. So emergency surgery. The surgery was supposed to be in a couple of hours, and it ended up being much longer. I can't remember exactly how many hours, but it was much longer. And I did flatline 2 times while I was on the operating table. Now, that was a bad experience. I don't wish that on anyone, but I will tell you that it was very painful. It's a very painful experience, especially if you get to the point where your tube is about to burst. It's very painful. During the process, the pain comes and goes, and the further along you get, it's more intense. So for those of you who have had babies, I think I've given birth since to 3 babies, and that tubal pregnancy pain is way worse than having the baby. Actually having the 6-pound something ounce babies that I had. None of my babies were big. So I went through that, and like I said, I was 20, but I was getting ready to turn 21. And later on, in the summer after I turned 21, I got married, and we got married, and I wanted another baby, but I didn't want them right then. It was only until I was like 24, 25 that I really, really wanted one. Like I kind of wanted one, but I wasn't really trying that hard. Now, I was kind of concerned because it seemed like, I wasn't on any birth control pills or nothing like that. And like my cycle would be on and off. I mean, I had issues with my cycle ever since I was almost 14 and started. So it was normal for me to go without one. But so when I really got to the point where I was like, something's got to be wrong, because now after I had the tubal pregnancy, because the way it was and the way the surgery was, now I forgot to tell y'all, now I only have 1 tube. So I basically ovulated every other month, but sometimes it wasn't even every other month. So that was an issue. My ovulation cycle was an issue. And so with that being said, it was difficult. And I think it was around 24, 25, somewhere in there, where my doctor told me that I would probably not be able to have children. I would probably never be able to have children because my chances were cut in half to even conceive because of my ovulation cycle. And then the way my womb and stuff, it was just so much going on with my body. Now, keep in mind, like I said earlier, there's a lot of misunderstanding of infertility because a lot of people think that, oh, if a woman's had problem having babies, maybe she has been very promiscuous, maybe she's had an abortion, maybe, it's always something negative that has to come with it if this woman has problems. I didn't have any of those. I've only been with one man my whole life. In other words, to put it plain, I've only had sex with one person. The first person I had sex with is the last person I had sex with. I've never had anybody else. I never had any venereal diseases, so I never had anything that would cause me to have those problems. So, as the old people would say, I didn't have no nasty woman disease or nothing like that. I don't know. I don't know why my body was made like it is. That's something that God did. God created me. Maybe if I wouldn't have had such a problem, maybe I wouldn't love my kids as much as I do. But after hearing that, when I was like 26, I think 26 and 27, 26 and 27, I did the fertility drugs. We did the fertility drugs and we did the shots. That I didn't like that. I did the pills first, and then I tried the shots. I didn't like either one of those because I didn't like the way it made me feel, and it didn't work. I didn't get pregnant while I was on those drugs. I never got pregnant, so I guess that just wasn't me. Wasn't meant to be like that. So I kind of started giving up. However, I will say I had this pastor during that time that it's like when he prayed for you, a lot of times you got pregnant. A lot of women who were having problems having babies, he prayed for them and they got pregnant, and a lot of those kids are grown and doing great things in the world, in the church and in the world. But the first couple of times I got in the prayer line, I did not get pregnant. However, fast forward 28, at 28 years old, I got pregnant, and I just knew that this was my miracle baby. Y'all, I just knew, okay, God has finally answered my prayer. This is my time. This is my season, and it is so. Well, about like four months and three weeks or something like that, but it was almost 5 months. I lost that baby. Now I was that far along, and people didn't realize how pregnant I was because I wouldn't have any signs. Like I didn't have no big belly, my nose wasn't spread, all that. But the people that were close to me, they knew I was pregnant. And I'm trying to remember. I don't think I was 5 months. I was in my second trimester. I was in the beginning of my second trimester, so I was 4 months pregnant. So, again, I was at work, and I started spotting, and I remembered, I was like, oh, this is not good. So I started spotting, and I kind of took it easy. And then I started bleeding a little bit heavier. And so I got in touch with my husband and we went to the hospital to make sure, because again, the doctor had already told me, if this happened, or if I start bleeding, or if I start cramping real bad, come to the emergency room. He'll meet me there. So I lost the baby that day. Now that loss was worse than the tubal pregnancy, emotionally speaking, because I didn't know I was pregnant on the tubal pregnancy. But this time I felt like this was my miracle baby. And so I'm going to tell y'all something. I was depressed. I was depressed for like a year and a half. Depressed. My husband didn't know I was depressed. My family didn't know. Nobody knew how depressed I really was. And when I look back on it, I am a walking miracle. Now, I wasn't so depressed that I wanted to like unalive myself, nothing like that. But I was a functional depressed person, which is why I get so concerned for people, because I know how dark you can be in darkness and nobody around you know. Like, I was still going to church. I was still singing in the choir. I was still going to Sunday school. If they asked me to teach Sunday school for the kids, I did that. Whenever other people had baby showers, I would go and I would get them the best gift that I could afford at the time. Whatever my friends needed, I was there for them. My loved ones, if they needed something, I was there for them. My stepkids, because I had stepchildren, but they were as old as I am, so I never really considered that as stepkids. But I did do for their children, because my husband was so much older than me. And his children had children by this time. So basically what I'm saying is I was depressed. I was saved. I was sanctified. I was filled with the Holy Ghost. But I was one downtrodden, depressed woman. And nobody knew it. Nobody but God. My husband would be sitting up there sleeping at night, and I'll be over there just crying, not understanding why did my miracle baby get taken from me. So I was listening to the show, and I thought about a lot of things that the lady's guest was saying. And it was so many things that resonated with me. But at this point, I have a 20-year-old. Next month, I have a son that's getting ready to turn 20. I have a son that's getting ready to turn 18 next month and getting ready to graduate high school. And I have a 14-year-old that's getting ready to go to high school. And in the midst of all that, I am a widow. And I was thinking, God has a way of doing things. Because after I got out there, it's still in the midst of the depression. And I remember we had a women's conference that year. And I remember the lady that came to the conference. We had a women's conference, and we had, in that particular women's conference, and I don't think we've done it since then, but in that particular women's conference, we had a prayer shut-in. For those of who don't know what that is when a group of saints in a particular church or even a district, they all go to one particular church, And they stay overnight, have a service, but most of the night is prayer. You praying to God for something. We haven't had that since then that I can remember of. And so, the lady ministered to me, and all the women that had me in the circle, they prayed for me, and I remember she said that God heard my prayer when I first prayed it, and everything's going to be all right. But I didn't think about it, I was going to have babies, because I prayed some other prayers too. So in my mind, I wasn't thinking about babies, because at that time I had just about given up on the baby. I just about given up on being a mother. Be thankful for what I have and try to be content. But it was after that meeting that, evidently right after that meeting, that I got pregnant. And, or I don't know. I think, thinking back, I probably was already pregnant. Come think of it. In order for me to have the baby when I had my oldest, when I did, I was already pregnant, but I did not know it. And I remember her laying her hands on my stomach, and I remember her speaking life at me, and I was at peace. Because up until then, I was in a state of depression. But that is when I came through and was at peace. And in April the 6th, 2004, I had my first baby. And then the second baby was after Hurricane Katrina. Not after Hurricane Katrina. I conceived right before Hurricane Katrina struck, and then that following April again, April the 24th, I had my second baby. Then fast forward 3 years, in 2009, September 2009, I had my baby boy. And I'm just sharing this with you guys because so many women have problems with fertility. And it's a real issue with a lot of women. And I think a lot of people misunderstand. A lot of people really, really misunderstand the pain and the suffering that a woman goes through, which I gotta tell you, that's probably part of the reason why I am, besides just me being a Christian, I am so not for abortion. Because there's just so many women that's having problems with having babies. And there's so many homes that those babies could go to that we shouldn't have to get rid of any. But anyway, I shared that. Hopefully it will encourage somebody who's going through these situations. I can't tell you how it's going to happen, how everything is going to turn out for you and your situation. I can't. And I don't even pretend to, because I didn't know how well it was going to turn out for me. So all I can tell you is, if you're going through it, I understand. It's painful. And people can say some really, really hard things. I'm going to do another video about some things that people said when I was going through my fertility issue. My fertility season is what I call it, because everything's a season. Everything that you go through is a season. We even considered adoption. He wasn't really on board with adoption because he already had children of his own. But me, I think I considered it more than he did. So it was a long journey, 10 years. First, I had my first loss at 20. My second loss at 28. And my first live birth at 31. And it's been a blessing. It was a long journey. It was painful at times, but it's been a blessing being the mom of 3 sons. Being a boy mom it's been something else. It's been a journey, and And I'm just thankful for God. And I just want to encourage you guys, especially women, because a lot of times, I don't know about, I can't speak for men, but I know for a woman it's very, very discouraging and painful when you're going through something like that. So anyway, be encouraged, stay prayerful, trust God that He's going to bring you through it with whatever His plan is for your life. And it may not be that you have children. I don't know. Only thing I know is what happened for me, and when I look back on it, I think if God would have given me the children younger, this season of my life, learning how to be without my husband would be more difficult for me. I don't know if that was His plan all along, to hold off and so I would have something to kind of keep my mind, because again, God's plan is so much more perfect than we can ever imagine. And just stay prayerful, stay in the faith, and know that all things do work together for the good for them that love the Lord, who are called according to His purpose, His riches, and His glory. Be blessed and be a blessing, and I am out.